presumably an agent approached you with Nightbitch, with the manuscript itself and a pitch. And as you were reading the manuscript, what moved you to commit yourself to it? What was it about this book in particular, apart from its one-liner WTF factor, um, that sealed the deal for you?
Well, I'll say just kind of in the context of the other question, the other things we've been talking about, Rachel's agent at the time was Monica Woods, and Monica was, somebody I really liked. We had some lunches and things together over the years, and we're kind of like looking for our book together. I felt like our tastes lined up, and I was expecting that at some point she was going to send me something I wanted to publish. So it was kind of easy for me to put it at the top of my pile. The pitch sounded really fun to me. And then kind of the moment you open this book, you're just thrust, full force into the power of Nightbitch's voice. And she's kind of going a mile a minute from the very beginning. And that voice really appealed to me. It felt very authoritative. It felt very nervy. Um, it felt kind of, it felt new in the way it was saying the things it was saying, which were not necessarily new concepts. But the way she was articulating them through this Nightbitch. And I just found myself having fun, I think. And then it quickly became, the question was, okay, there's so many great ingredients here. Is she gonna nail the ending? If she sticks the landing, like, then this is a book we want to buy.
And so at that point, you're able to start working with the text. Was that a particularly arduous process in Nightbitch's case, or was it pretty much publishable as is? I'd be curious to hear how the text evolved over the editing process.
Yeah, it was not arduous. I mean, I think something that I always liked about Nightbitch was that I felt like she was having fun with her subject matter on the page. And she was both kind of, she was talking about deathly serious matters without taking herself too seriously. So I think what I was most interested in was really making sure that kind of, she had her voice down. She had kind of the message, the story she wanted to tell down. I really wanted to make sure all of these individual story building blocks were adding up and kind of moving her in the right direction. So I remember I was also particularly interested in making sure that everything maintained that sense of kind of being in limbo, where, if you looked at it from slightly this direction, it was one way, and slightly from the other direction, it was a different way, but you could never fully get your feet under you. You could never decide, is she actually shape-shifting into a dog, or is she running around naked, running around the suburban cul-de-sac naked, and I didn't want you to be able to come to that. And I wanted it to feel the same with kind of Wanda's creatures that she talks about. Everything was just like this close to real, just a little bit off. So it was a lot of fine tuning. And then we had a lot of fun. I think a big thing was that she always had the kind of multi-level marketing mommies storyline in there. But we kind of moved them earlier and really integrated them into the plot a bit more, so that she was quite literally like, moms became identified with different dogs, and there was much more of a question of whether or not these other women were also turning into dogs. We also worked on some of the flashback stuff from Nightbitch's past with her mom, which took on a different form earlier on, to really try and figure out what Rachel wanted to say about Nightbitch's past that would make her into the person that this would happen to in the present. So it was all, I mean, it was, you know, we got to have a lot of funny conversations and trying to make those pieces line up perfectly about what dog matched with which mom, etc. And it definitely wasn't, it didn't feel arduous. And Rachel really came up with a lot of the solutions kind of very organically, once just asked, like, what do you think goes there? Like, who do you think that is? So it was a very delightful process.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you learned in the course of editing this book. How are you different as an editor, or how did you change as an editor uh, after working with Rachel on Nightbitch, if at all?
I mean, I will say, I feel like Rachel and I were very kind of Rachel and I were very simpatico, kind of, and our vision of the book really just kind of lined up from the first, which is, I guess, part of, so it didn't feel like it wasn't a particularly challenging edit. I don't know that I necessarily grew as an editor, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it just fell really squarely into a space that I felt like I wanted to play in because I was comfortable there. I think where I grew more is probably as a publisher in this book, just because um, it was a very surprising campaign in that it ended up coming out in the pandemic. I didn't buy it during the pandemic. That was a death knell for a lot of books at the time. It was really, really hard to get media attention because there was so much news happening, and it was also really hard to get people to pay attention to kind of, you know, a book event, or what were you going to say about a book in this moment that was really going to stick in people's minds. And I think I had a narrative about the book in mind and a vision when we first acquired it, and it was a matter of me and then everybody else that worked on this book, marketing, publicity, production, everybody, of really like molding that vision to fit the time that we were in. And it turned out that it fit really perfectly. Like, it just chimed exactly with this constant churn of articles that were coming out about, you know, women in this total care overload who were, you know, being forced out of the workforce and stuck inside with screaming toddlers and given absolutely no support. I mean, the world was really speaking to those issues. And so it was a matter of figuring out how to match the book up in the right places and spaces and people who were already having that conversation, and making people think of the two together. And that was it was a really good experience and a really fun experience, and kind of um, it was surprising to see the way the book kind of like changed shape with this totally unprecedented cultural situation that we were in.